Inspiring interviews with today's top landlords. This is the Rental Income Podcast. And now, Dan Lane.
Zach, why don't we start off talking about your strategy? Can you tell me what you're doing with your rentals?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now I have a full-time job, and so I'm really looking for single-family homes, at least a 3-2, that'll cash flow on a monthly basis, that are pretty turnkey and ready to go, that don't require a whole lot of rehab or maintenance.
So you're not looking to do a full rehab. You want to buy properties that when you buy them, you could turn around the next day and rent them out?
Yep, that's exactly it. Really minimal fixes is what I'm looking for. Again, just with having a job right now, that taking up a lot of my time, looking for something that's fairly low time intensity.
I think it's human nature to want to complicate things and make things seem more difficult than they really are. But the truth is, investing in rental properties can actually be very simple, and Zach has proven that. He's not doing any kind of creative financing strategies. He's not buying fixer-uppers. He's just buying good properties in good neighborhoods. He's renting them to good tenants and collecting passive income every month. It's really a time-tested basic strategy. And on the show today, we're going to see exactly what he's doing. We'll take a look at one of his deals and see how much money he's making and see how he's building out his portfolio. Joining us on the show today from Atlanta is Zach Kennedy. We'll take a really quick break to thank our sponsors. We'll come right back and we'll talk to Zach. A good deal on a rental property isn't going to last very long. To win properties today, you need to move quickly when a deal comes on the market, but it takes time to analyze a property. I want to let you know about an app where you can analyze deals on your phone in seconds. It's called Ask Rick. That's RIC for Rental Income Calculator. You can analyze a deal with the push of a button. You can figure out the rent, your mortgage payment, your expenses, and figure out the cash flow. If the numbers make sense, you can make an offer right there on the app, or you can send a calendar invite to your agent to see the property in person. Ask Rick is currently offering a free 7-day trial. Just search for Ask Rick in the App Store or go to Just Ask Rick. That's RIC. JustAskRick.com. There is a ton of paperwork involved when you're getting a mortgage on a rental property. Lenders are going to want to see 2 years of tax returns, pay stubs, bank statements. I mean, it's a lot of work and a huge hassle. Shaylee Ridge from Ridge Lending Group has a brand new loan program where she doesn't care about any of that. She actually doesn't need any paperwork from you at all. She's just going to look at the deal. The most important thing she wants to see is, does it make sense? Is the property going to cash flow? If it does, she'll give you a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. Now, the rates are going to be a little bit higher than a traditional full doc loan, but it's still a great deal, somewhere between 3.9 and 5%. She can close quickly and there's no hassle. She can even do a cash out refi with this program. If you want to learn more, just reach out to Shaylee at ridgelendinggroup.com. That's RIDGE lendinggroup.com, NMLS 42056. Zach, why don't we start things off talking about your rentals? What does your portfolio look like?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I started buying back in 2018, really primarily looking for single family homes here in the Atlanta area. And started purchasing with one property, and then shortly after that got into another kind of while I was still in the due diligence phase of that. And then kind of over the years, I've been picking up slowly but surely additional properties. So right now I have 3 single family homes that are rented out. All of them at least a 3-2, all of them, cash flowing on a monthly basis that were fairly ready to move in once I purchased them. So they were either, rehabbed, ready to move in, or this is the case in the first property that I purchased. It actually already had a tenant in place when I bought it. So it was kind of rent coming in from day one.
And what are the neighborhoods like that the properties are in?
Yeah, so it's interesting. It's shifted over the years, just kind of with the way that the market has gone. Really, the first couple of properties that I purchased were here in town, inside the perimeter in Atlanta. So, really kind of I would say solid B-level neighborhoods. You're not getting a whole lot of houses that are boarded up or lawns that are in disrepair or, a ton of cars in and around. So solid neighborhoods, not A-level neighborhoods necessarily, but places that I could kind of get in for a reasonable price. Was really looking kind of in the, I would say $120,000 to $170,000 range. That was going to cash flow somewhere around the 1%.
Okay.
So that's kind of the neighborhood and area that I was looking for. So the first couple are here inside the perimeter that I purchased.
All right. So you're looking for good, solid properties in good neighborhoods. What are your long-term goals with your rental portfolio? Like, what are you trying to do?
Yeah, honestly, I'm trying to build a basis for growth and kind of long-term wealth. And so a lot of these properties that I'm buying, I do need them to cash flow. That's definitely a focus, but I'm also trying to find places that I feel like are going to grow in value over the years as the city continues to grow. And so, again, that's why I'm kind of looking for single family homes that are in good shape and good neighborhoods. I'm not trying to rely on that growth or that appreciation, but it's certainly one of the big reasons that I wanted to get into real estate and that I was so interested in it is, you can do your research, do your homework, make sure that the property is going to be profitable month in and month out, but then you also have this added benefit in the background that's always working for you that you might not see in your bank account, but you have this asset that's continuing to grow over time. That's kind of proven, through history that it's a good investment. So
Sure.
that's really the thing that I've loved about real estate. The thing that gets me very, very passionate about it is, you have this great tool for cash flow, but also, just incredible long-term wealth building.
Now, you mentioned at the beginning that you work full-time and you don't have time to do a rehab. Now, a lot of people feel like they need to do a rehab when they buy a rental property or they need to do the BRRRR strategy. But I think you're proof that there are properties out there that you can buy that aren't going to require a lot of time to fix them up. So are they hard to find? Like the properties that you've bought, have you spent a ton of time to try to find them?
Yeah, and it's definitely gotten harder. It has certainly gotten harder over the last couple of years, just as the market has gotten to the place that it is. But I think there's some things that you can do that have at least worked for me that have helped find these opportunities for move-in ready properties. One of them, again, the first one that I had purchased, actually already had a tenant in place. And so as I kind of thought about looking at that one, it wasn't listed for what I believe it was really worth because, you couldn't at the time sell it to somebody who wanted to move in the day that they closed. You had a tenant in place. And so was able to kind of find somewhere that I thought had some hidden value in the property immediately without having to rehab it just because it was already rented out. And then there's some other things that have taken place that I think have been helpful as I'm looking for this, like just being quick. I think that's a huge one.
Yep.
I think being the one of the things that my agent, who I've been working with for years, has always kind of instilled is the first offer is the best offer, right? And so if you find something, you get in there quick and put in an offer, that's, you're the best offer if you're the first one.
Right. So,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So everything that you've bought has been with your agent? Like you've bought everything on market that you've found on the MLS?
Well, that to a degree, the last place that I bought, it was actually pretty interesting. And I think this goes into another strategy as well, is just being very clear about what you're looking for, making sure your partners know what you want in a deal, what makes a deal successful for you, because that can change from person to person. And so my agent knew kind of what I was looking for. And so the last deal that we found was actually somebody that she worked with. It was an agent in her office that was about to list a place that she heard about and said, "Hey, we have somebody that wants to go in and see it before we list it." And so we actually saw it before it hit the MLS and put in an offer before it hit the MLS. And so, we had their ear prior to it even hitting that channel because, again, I'm working with a great partner here, as well as the fact that I was very clear about kind of what a successful property for me would look like.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of success with real estate is just putting out there what you're looking for, letting everybody know what you're looking for, because you never know who's going to find that deal for you. In your case, it was your agent that was talking to another agent in her office, but you never know who might bring you a deal. So I think that's the way to do it. Well, let's talk about one of your deals and kind of take a look at what you're doing. So do you have a deal in mind that might be interesting to talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say the second deal that I ever got into was one of my favorites. It was very interesting the way that it played out. I had been looking for, months, close to a year prior to buy a property. Finally went under contract, and then the next week, my agent reaches out to me and says, "Hey, I know you're under contract, but this just came up today. It's in the exact kind of area that you're looking for. It's the exact type of property. It would rent for exactly what you're hoping for. It's listed at the price that you're looking for. I just wanted to send it to you." And so even though, I was kind of hoping to just dip my toe in and see what everything was about with landlording, I went out and looked at the property and said, you know what, this is, I've done the due diligence. This is exactly what I'm looking for. I'm going to pull the trigger. And so ended up purchasing that property. It was back in 2018 for $128,500. It has been very easy to rent so far. Currently rented at $1,430, and the value over that time has basically doubled
Awesome.
in the property itself. So it's been, a great one for me. I'm so glad that I did it. And again, just another case of being clear about your intentions.
Yeah, you got to just
what
jump
you're looking
in.
for.
Yeah, that's perfect. All right, so it's rented for $1,430. What's your mortgage payment?
So the mortgage payment on that one is going to total out to be, with taxes, insurance, principal, and interest, $821.
Okay. And are you managing it yourself, or do you have a property manager?
I'm not. I have a property manager.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
And what do they charge?
It's just under 9%, 8.9% of the rents.
Okay. And do they have any other fees that they tack on? I know different managers have different structures. Does yours just charge you a flat fee every month, or do they have any other fees they add on to that?
Yeah, there's a couple. There's one $19 eviction fee that covers should they need to go through the eviction process with a tenant. And then placement, they also charge a month's rent for placement. And so the way I kind of figure it with my, I just divide that over the course of a year to run my numbers and factor that in each month.
Okay. So you're budgeting for a turnover every year where hopefully that won't happen. Hopefully you'll have tenants that stick around, but in your calculations, you're budgeting for that fee every year.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I always kind of try to, and when I'm budgeting when I'm planning it out, I'll also factor in, 5% for maintenance, even though most of what I'm buying is turnkey and fairly renovated, 5% for vacancy as well. Just to be safe. Fortunately, there hasn't really been a whole lot of that.
And you're just kind of putting that money aside into a savings account for when stuff comes up.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. It all goes into my business account.
Okay, awesome. So when everything's all said and done, how much profit are you generating off that property?
So on that property, factoring in all expenses, it totals out to be about $343 a month in cash flow.
Okay, so that's after you put aside 5% for vacancy, 5% for maintenance. You've budgeted for your turnover cost with your manager.
Yeah, right around there. And again, it would be a little bit less with the 5% for vacancy and repairs. Just haven't had to pay that.
Awesome. What about turnover? Is your tenant? Have you had much turnover there?
We had one turnover, but it was rented out again extremely quickly. We've had no problem with it based on the location and the shape that it's in. And we just found out recently that the tenants that are in there now, there's a family issue. They're going to need to move out in December. But they've been incredible, paying on time and very few maintenance requests, and they're working with us. So we will reduce kind of the early termination fees if they help us allow somebody to come in and check it out before renting. So we're hoping that there's going to be very little vacancy when they move out.
I mean, it's a good time. It's a good time in the market where, rents are going up now. I mean, I don't know your market, but maybe you can rent it for more than the $1,430.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, really, we have kept them fairly low because they've been great tenants, but we're going to relist it at $1,645. The last year to two in the Atlanta area has just been absolutely on fire as far as home prices and rents. So that's where we think market is, and we don't think we're going to have any trouble getting that.
So has anything bad happened? I mean, it sounds like you've got a great portfolio. You've got a property manager that's taking care of everything. Have you had any trouble or bad things happen?
Oh, for sure. There's always going to be things that come up. There are a couple that come to mind. The first is the first property that I had purchased. Again, had a tenant in place. It was, in fairly good shape, or so we thought. The tenant renewed their lease, but then into their second lease, there was a massive flood. There was an issue with the upstairs toilet. It overflowed and did a huge amount of damage to the entire property that ended up taking about $15,000 to repair to get it back in shape to live in.
Is that $15,000 that you had to come up with, or was that an insurance claim?
It was an insurance claim, which, was a great learning for me, that it's, even if the worst case happens, that's the reason that you pay insurance each month. There are things that helped. My insurance company was fantastic through the entire thing. I work with State Farm down here. They did an incredible job. Not only did they help out kind of through the process and getting it ready, so there was very minimal payment on my side. I think it ended up being, it was $2,000 to $3,000 that I ended up paying out of pocket. But they also, when the tenant ended up kind of moving out, they paid for lost rent during that time as well. So it was, really, again, an amazing partner, which you need, I think, to be successful.
That is a really good thing, that everyone needs to check their landlord policy and make sure that they have that coverage in there for lost rent, because that is a great thing. If your property is out of service for a major disaster like that, the insurance company will pay your rent. And I think that really helps. And the other good thing that I think was a good learning lesson on this is that, sure, you're going to have repairs, and you could even have expensive repairs, but having property insurance is so important, because, something like this, if you didn't have insurance on the property for some reason, having to come up with $15,000 for a flood like this would have been devastating, I'm sure.
I couldn't even imagine.
Yeah.
I couldn't even imagine.
Yeah.
I'm very, very grateful.
So, it all worked out. You got the property fixed up. You got everything up and running again, and everything worked out.
Yeah. I mean, it was pretty amazing the way that it worked out. We got everything renovated. It was in great shape. And based on kind of the way that the market laid out, we ended up selling it about 2 years after we bought it. We'd purchased it for 126, sold it for 175.
Okay, awesome. Nice little profit there. That's great. Yeah. Well, what made you sell? Was it just going through that experience?
Primarily it was. Looking back now, really the regrets that I have are not holding properties or not buying properties as opposed to the ones that I bought. So, at the time it was months of renovations and updates, and making sure that was all getting done and tracking the expenses. And by the time I was done and saw what it would sell for, I said, this is, I think, a pretty good opportunity to gain some capital for the next opportunity.
Sure.
So looking back, I would love to still have it as part of the portfolio, but I was able to use those funds for other things, which is great.
Has anything else bad happened, or was that really the worst thing?
I would say that's probably the worst thing, but we did have an interesting scenario with one of the properties that I'd purchased. It was the third one that I had bought. It was a great property in really good shape. And about a week after we had listed it, I get a call from my property manager and they say, "Hey, I don't know how to tell you this, but somebody has moved into the property that we have never spoken with. They think that they're the tenants, but we have never talked to them." And come to find out, it was actually a scammer on Craigslist that had taken our listing, reposted it for about $500 cheaper, convinced somebody to pay them a deposit, guided them through our site to get the key out of the lockbox like somebody would to tour, and just keep it and move in. And so it was not something that I ever thought was possible or heard of happening. But apparently it's an issue.
Sure.
And, we got fortunate that the people that were in there understood the situation, did not blame us, and moved out fairly quickly. And really all that it cost us was a week's worth of vacancy and an extra cleaning fee.
And so you didn't have to go through an eviction. They just left. They realized that they got scammed and they just took off.
Right. They realized we didn't have any kind of lease agreement with them. And, fortunately they understood what happened, and I feel for them.
You got really lucky on that, because if they just stayed, you would have to go through an eviction with them. So that really lucked out. You really lucked out on that one.
Absolutely. And that's when I'm talking to the property manager, they're like, they seem understanding. Let's hope they move out. Cause it could have been bad, but I think there are going to be things like this that come up, for sure. And I fully expect that these won't be the only two.
That's the thing. It's like bad things.
None of them have been so bad.
Sure. I mean, bad things are going to happen when you own rental properties, but it's just a matter of working through it and figuring out how to solve the problem.
Right. Exactly. And then, you're more prepared for it the next time. Right.
Yeah.
So if either of these things come up again, I think I'd be better prepared, and I'm sure I'd handle them better than I did the first time.
Zach, I love your strategy. I love what you're doing. I have no doubt that you're going to build a lot of wealth as you continue to grow your rental portfolio. So keep up the great work. Before we wrap things up today, I just want to give a big thank you to Chaley Ridge for sponsoring the show today. If you are looking to buy a rental property, whether you're just getting started or you want to add to your portfolio, definitely reach out to Chaley Ridge. She's a nationwide lender, and her specialty is helping investors finance rental properties. She has a ton of different loan programs, and she can find something customized to you for your situation. You can find Chaley at ridgelendinggroup.com. That's RIDGE. lendinggroup.com, NMLS 42056. Thank you so much for checking out the podcast today. We'll be back with a bonus episode on Thursday and then a regular interview on Tuesday. My name is Dan Lane, and this has been the Rental Income Podcast.